Hello, this is Ryan with another episode of the Natural Aquarium. Today we're going to get into an advanced feature that you can do with your natural aquarium keeping. And we're of course going to center around fish breeding, but it's really something that affects the entire aquarium, something that will affect your plants, the little microorganisms, anything that's living inside of your aquarium. So let's go ahead and we'll dive right in with a story this time, and the next episode we'll get into the nitty-gritty details of how you can do this yourself.
Before we get into the meat of what it is that we're going to talk about today, I feel it's important to talk about the process, because sometimes the process of even coming up with ideas can be just as important as the ideas themselves. One can't exist without the other. It all started with the least killifish, Heterandria formosa. I have a love-hate relationship with this fish. It's actually the second type of fish that I had acquired. I started with invertebrate and then spent a lot of time researching Heterandria to make sure that it was a fish that I think I could raise sustainably. After a year of raising this fish, I noticed that there were some odd patterns occurring. For one, I had females that didn't grow as big as the original females, and two, I also noticed that my ratio of male to female was skewing heavily towards the females, and I didn't have so many males over time. So like any good educator, I hit the books, and this involved, well, heading towards Google Scholar. Started going through papers, seeing what I could learn about the ratio of males to females, how sexual reproduction happened in these fish, what made a good sized female, what didn't, and I happened to come across a particular paper. At the time, the paper basically just caused me to pause for a minute. This is some interesting information. Hey, we've got a scientist here who's gone and, did plenty of research on both temperature and daylight, and, well, there's some things to be learned from that, and kind of put that in the back of my head for a while. It wasn't until just recently, after having had an outdoor pond for a year and having had those least killifish in the pond for a period of time before moving them to a complete other tank, that I finally put it all together. It was really the maintenance of a very stable tank condition that caused the issues that I was seeing with this particular species. It was the maintenance of having the same amount of light day in, day out. It was having the same temperature day in, day out. Absolutely no fluctuation that caused my issue. In their natural habitat, fish normally don't have a steady temperature. They don't have a steady amount of daylight, except, well, perhaps somewhere near the equator, but even still, there's a little bit of seasonal fluctuation because not everything is a very closed system. So the data within this paper took a look at this table here and, hey, wow, there's a lot of changes over the months. There's a lot more females alive during the wintertime to be captured, and during the summertime, the sex ratio was about the same. And of course, this correlated heavily with, well, there are seasons in this particular place of Florida, which just so happen to be Jacksonville, and you can see that there are warm summer months and cool winter months. And then also completely correlated with this was the photoperiod, or the amount of light in a day. And in this research experiment, they had set up conditions where there was an 8-hour photoperiod and a 16-hour photoperiod, and there was various temperatures that were tested, and wow, look at that. Despite having the same photoperiod, temperature had an effect on the number of embryos. And as we can see when we put it all together, the photoperiod also has a big influence on the number of females that were carrying embryos. So both temperature and the amount of light per day were triggering these fish to have more babies. So when we put it all together, we can see that some fish will react to their environment They will react to the temperature, they will react to the amount of light, and then also another thing to take into consideration is that some of these places have rainier months and some have drier months. And all of that is completely correlated. And in fact, this is a thing that a lot of master breeders are taking into consideration when they are trying to breed a particular type of fish that may be more difficult to breed than another. They take a look at, hey, what's going on in the climate here? Is there more rain? What can I do to simulate that? Do temperatures need to be higher? What can I do to get these fish to breed? What does nature tell them? What cues are these fish picking up from their natural environment that tells them that it's time to breed? So let me give you another for instance of a fish that is going to be triggered by light, going to be triggered by temperature, and perhaps even motivated by water to breed. And that is the rice fish that I have in my pond. These rice fish, I've seen them for an entire year now. I've tracked when they've had babies and when they have not. And I can tell you that nature has a very specific progression that gets these fish ready, and also make sure that they are able to actually sustain their babies. And that progression is as follows. Winter months, plants that were inside the pond, they die back. When they die back, they're going to leave their nutrients to be broken down by decomposers, detritivores, and build up in the soils. And then when springtime comes around, you'll end up with a bloom, because all of a sudden temperatures and light are perfect for there to be all sorts of photosynthetic algae, plants, everything that can do photosynthesis will start to kick back into gear. And because there is now this great food source, all the things that eat all of those algae and other things will start increasing in number as well. There's an increase in ostracods, an increase in daphnia, all of them blooming one after the other, all in response to the light and the temperature. And then also my one key thing here too is that I am adding in rainwater. So it is changing the chemistry of the water as well. Now, after all of that happens, of course, the fish are also getting triggered to spawn. And when they do that, it takes a little bit longer than it takes for all of these other microorganisms to reproduce. And so by the time that the fish are hatching from their eggs, there is an abundant food source for them. And also the adults have been benefiting, because now they probably won't eat their babies and probably won't eat their eggs because they too are full. And in fact, the same process even happens in my resurrection jars. I've had them for years now. It's springtime once more at this current time, heading into summer, and I right now have lots of green water. There's also lots of daphnia, lots of ostracods. Over the winter time, not so much. Why? Because again, that food source is triggered by sunlight and temperature. And in the case of the vernal pools, those things won't even come out until that wonderful, almost neutral water hits the ground. So now that we've hopefully established a why, perhaps I've piqued your curiosity, I have many more things prepared in our next video. Our next video, I have an entire table of things that you can do to simulate seasonal change in your aquarium, and hopefully you yourself can become a master breeder if that so happens to be your goal. Or perhaps you just wanted to expand upon the whole concept of having a natural aquarium and doing what nature does for your fish. And being that it's a natural aquarium, well, we can't forget about the plants too, because they also benefit from the seasonal change. If you've never seen flowers on some of these plants before, you just might. Also, if you have bulb plants tend to be quite affected by temperature change and light change. So if you've had something that's gone dormant on you, chances are it might not actually be dead, it's just waiting for that seasonal change to occur. So with all that in mind, maybe you want to get your thermometer at the ready, get yourself an adjustable heater. If you have a timer for your lights, hopefully it's one that can be manipulated easily. And we'll also take a look at what can happen when you add different water sources, ones that are softer or harder than your regular water sources.
Hey, thanks for joining us on our lovely little preamble to what's going to be a very advanced concept. I hope that you'll join us for the next episode where you can discover all of the little details that you will need to know to pull this off in your own aquariums. And if you liked it, oh yeah, there's a like. Leave that thumbs up. If you've got any little comments as to your own little journeys, please leave them down in the comments below. And if you want to see some more of this, of course, subscribe is always great. And also, Father Fish's lovely little Shopify website has been redone. Maybe check that out. Got some new inventory in all the time. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time right here on Father Fish and the Natural Aquarium.